The concept is actually pretty simple. It's just getting it into your head to make sure that you understand it so that it makes your life a lot easier. You can also reduce the stress by understanding the concept as well. Mosaic crochet patterns are worked in alternating pairs of single crochet rows, with each pair consisting of the right side and wrong side. So what she's saying here is that when you go across with single crochet with let's just say for example gray here, when you return back you'll be using gray, and then what's gonna happen is then the next row you're going to be using here the purple, so you'll go across with purple and return with purple, and the colors will be carrying up loosely on the one side. So the coloring is always gonna change on the one side here, and that's what she's saying in that particular instruction. So the unused color is being carried up, and the beautiful thing about this concept is that the stitches will drop down. So this double crochet, I can put my hook right behind it, and if I move it to the side you'll see that the purple is right underneath. Therefore this will literally hide the color instead of being tapestry crochet. So when it's purple, gray is not being traveling under it. Gray has just been left to the side at the end, and then you come back and return. And so when you have this here, the gray, you don't see any purple in there at all because it's not being carried. So that's a really wonderful thing. So let's move along in the next paragraph. A mosaic crochet pattern starts to come to life when the double crochet stitches worked on your right side only. So whenever you do the drop down, it has to be the side that you can physically see when you're putting it onto your sofa and displaying it. So the good side is always that you're going to be doing something fun like this. So the opposite side, the bad side, the wrong side, is all just going to be striping because there's no mosaic happening on the other side. But what's happening here behind here is what's making it possible for it being in the front. So you'll start to see ideas. So whenever there's a drop down just like you see here, there is a chain 2 space behind it. The only difference is that when you have things like this where there's 2 colors in a row, there's 2 drop downs, that would have been a chain 3. So here's the concept. If you have to skip over 1 stitch, you will chain 2. If you have to skip over 2 stitches, you have to chain 3, and you're adding that extra chain in there so when this drops down it sits flush within your project and not popping out and jumping out and causing it to not sit right. So the extra chain whenever you're going to put in there will make it sit so everything is really aligning properly. So when you're reading the diagrams, what's gonna happen is that when you do a drop down like this one here, you're going to notice that you would have had to do a chain 2 after this in order to create a space that is appearing so the next drop down in the future can happen. So what you have to watch out for is that when you have these drop downs happen, there's going to be spaces either before or after, sometimes before and after, in order to create the spaces for things to happen. So you just have to keep an eye that whenever you're going across on the front side, the right side of the work, is that you're not only going to do your drop down, but you're also going to create spaces so that in the future when you have to drop down again that they'll be there and available for you. To keep track of this, what she's recommending as well is to have a post-it note or a piece of paper to overlay the pattern. So you can just lay it on top of the pattern and just hide what is above. You know, sometimes the hardest things are so easy to do when you can never just ignore what is in top, because you don't need to worry about what's on top at this moment, but you can just focus on what's underneath and just move up your paper. And the nice thing about being a sticky note is that you can unstick it and then restick it without any issues at all. So it's a really beautiful concept. The charts also have a unusual red line, and there's an explanation for that, but we'll talk about that when we get closer to the actual pattern itself. And so she also has instructions for us on how to do these particular concepts. So she provided to us not only just examples of how the chart is going, but also examples on how it's physically crocheted as well, which I think is a real true bonus here. So in this first example what we have is a reduced or sample of the right side of the first to 4th row of the zigzag mosaic crochet pattern. So you will notice here that we went across and we have row number 1, and then we came back with row number 2, and you saw that they were just single crochets in each. If you don't know how to read these things, the stitch key is available to you, and also we will be covering it at the start of every section as well. As we begin row number 3 is that we're going to chain up 1, and the first 3 have a single crochet, and then chain 2, skip 1, single crochet in the next, chain 2, skip the 1, and then single crochet in the next 3. And what you see in the red line here is the repeat of the project happening. So you can see that everything between the repeat happens over and over again. So once you get that into your head, it's so much easier to be able to follow. What you're doing here is that you're creating the holes of the extra chain that has been provided, so that next row that will come into play will drop down in front of those chain 2 spaces and attach right to that single crochet to be into position. So we'll cover that in the next chart that's just straight down. So what you're seeing here is that you're getting yourself overlaid. So the first color, it's easy to tell, is just going to be your main color. So it could be a white or gray. So back with the or forward with the main color, and then back with the main color. Drop it, let it hold to the side, and then grab the fun color, the secondary color, and then just single crochet the first 3 and then go across with that color and then back, and then you'll drop it again and bring up the main color. So you'll loosely travel those up. So let's move down on that page and let's go through this chart, which is just a build on to what is above. So let's begin down here in row number 5, and what we have is that we're going to just chain up 1 and single crochet the first 2. So you have to think about 2 things when you're coming across. You have to think about building more chain spaces, and you also have to think about dropping down at this point. So you're gonna single crochet in the first 2, chain 2, which will skip a space or skip a stitch here, and you'll double crochet down into this single crochet down here. The double crochet has a bend to it. That means that we're crocheting in front. You're going to then single crochet the next stitch here and then dropping down again for another double crochet down here. You're chaining 2, single crocheting in the next, so you're just gonna skip the stitch, single crochet in the next, and you will see that the repeat has just shifted over slightly. So the red line is showing you that, and so then you'll see the constant repeating of this pattern then going all the way across. So you're chaining 2, skipping 1, dropping down, single crochet the next, double crochet by dropping down, chaining 2, single crochet in the next, and etc. all the way to the end. Here's the advantage of this whole concept. When you return on the wrong side, it always matches what was on the right side, but only doing single crochet. So let's look at it. So chain 1, single crochet in the first 2, single crochet in the next. You see this chain 2? You're just chaining 2. You're just matching it. Instead of dropping down, you're just single crocheting. So you single crochet in every stitch, and when there's spaces, you're just gonna jump over. And if you don't think that's true, if you look back up here, when we did the return pass on number 4, it matched everything, and you're going to see that happening every time on the back side. So if you single crochet in every stitch across, you're single crocheting in every stitch going back. If you're doing some space work, you're gonna match those spaces returning. So as we continue this particular concept, we're then moving up in the pattern, and we're now going to rows number 7 and 8. So 7 and 8 is again the fun color, the contrast color. So you're worrying about dropping down. I wouldn't say worry is a good word, but you're going to chain up 1, single crochet, chain 2, then drop down where the space is. You'll see the space right on the project, and then you'll single crochet in the next 3. You'll drop down with the double crochet, and then you'll chain 2 and then skipping 1 and then dropping down, and you will see that it's following that shift that we did last time. So if you're looking here, you're seeing that the blue is dropping down, and again the return pass is just matching stitch for stitch. So single crocheting in the stitches where they count, and where there's chain 2 spaces you just continue to do that. So the back side of this whole afghan is actually gonna look just like this. So when you're going in the back, you're just matching it. So if I turn the sample over, you see nothing but stripes. That's gonna happen. So the nice thing about it is that even if it does flip, it'll look striped, but when you turn it over, you can have the magic just like you see here. And so it's a really neat concept in order to do it, and as you're building it and you start to do a repeat of this pattern, you're going to notice is that once the repeat's done, you're gonna start to be able to look before and say, okay, well, where did that really go into play? And when I back out the camera now, is that when you look at the sample, like you just see 1 repeat here, you'll see 5 of these when you actually have the real sample done. And what we're recommending is that every time you do a repeat, just put a stitch marker in there and you'll be able to see it. But on the zigzags here that you'll see, you'll be able to count 5. And then here, as you're building up, this is just a small example, but what you'll have is 3 repeats of this eventually. This is 1 repeat, and then 3 repeats of that going the other way. So it's a really kind of a neat concept in order to play. So I know this was a really kind of a long section here. It's really necessary for you to understand this concept to make your life a lot easier. Less frogging, more cooking, and that's kind of the goal.